So I want to show a little bit about the difference between data types in Dynamo. I just opened up my sample file here. I just did that kind of quick. Create points, create point sequence. And what I want to show is the difference between geometry and Revit stuff. So here in this definition, I've got something that makes a sequence of numbers, and then we'll create a series of XYZ coordinates, and then we'll create a reference point. So some of you might scratch your head and say, what's the difference between a coordinate point, XYZ, and a reference point? Well, in Revit, for those of you who know or those of you who don't, when we have a reference point, which I'm just going to place out here in the canvas, this isn't just a point in space. It's if I select it, I can go over here and I can see that it's got rotation angles, it's got a work plane that is associated, it has graphic representations, it has visibility parameters, it has all this other stuff. You know, it's got properties that I can manipulate over here and it'll move it around. And it's not just an XYZ coordinate point in space. So if I go back over here and I take a look at my definition, I've got two things I'm making. I'm getting a simple coordinate point in space and a reference point. They're different. So how do you start to sort of deal with these kinds of things? This is sort of lightweight geometry, and I want to show you a couple ways that you can visualize it and see what it's doing. So if I go over here and I go watch, and I get my watch 3D, Watch 3D basically shows you everything. It'll show you Revit geometry, it'll show you abstracted geometry like these XYZ coordinates. So if I run this automatically, and I'm just going to scroll wheel here, you can see I've got my series of points now in space. It's not showing out here in Revit because these are not Revit elements, right? So another way that you can actually visualize this stuff, and we haven't really bubbled this up to the surface yet, so I'm just going to sort of show you how you get there, is enable preview geometry. And what this does is that it basically allows me to see everything that's being generated in terms of geometry in the background of the canvas. It needs sometimes a little kick to get the regeneration going. So I just changed the points. And we're still refining this. So, and also the UI of it is pretty buried. So if I hold down the escape key, I can scroll back out. And if I'm holding down escape, I can start navigating this space using orbit and pan. Using the middle mouse, orbit using right click, scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So what this basically allows me to do is that I can either move around the graph, or hitting escape, I can move around my abstracted geometry. So another sort of idea about this abstracted geometry is that it's not just reference points versus XYZs. It's also the idea of creating things like lines. So I'm going to control copy and paste this set of guys down here. I'm going to give myself enough information that I can make some lines. So let's see, I'll swap these guys out, give myself something I can lace together. Start these a little farther out. So what have I got here? So now I'm hitting escape and I can look at my lines in space here, right? Or I can look at my points in space. I'm going to make some lines. And I'll get line. So again, this is an abstracted piece of geometry. This isn't a Revit element yet. And I can lace these two things together in kabam kapow, because this thing is set to longest lacing. I'm getting to get a connection between these two lists of points. And so again, not yet Revit elements. And if I look out here in the Revit canvas, I still don't have anything showing, right? So how do I then go about saying, well, I've got my lines, I want to actually make Revit stuff out of them? This is where you need to make a decision of what kind of stuff do you want to make. Do you want to make reference lines? Do you want to make model lines? Do you actually even want to bypass the whole idea of doing line work and just say you're going to lace things together with an adaptive component? So with things like adaptive components, we have some samples that also show you a little bit more about how to do that. But I'll just show you a quick thing about how to make these into lines. So if I do, let's see, let's do a, I'm just going to look at one of my curve options. Curve by points. So I can do curve by points. Oh no, I'll do curve by points by line. So I can feed in a line into my curve. And so I'm going to have a geometry line that is now going to be converted into both curve by points, which is a Revit element, and points. So I can instantly get a bunch of stuff that is now controlled by the graph. So you do need to basically make some amount of distinction between when you're dealing with abstracted geometry and when you're dealing with Revit stuff. And we're trying to make this a little bit easier as we go along, but just it's important to understand that there is a difference between when you're dealing with Revit elements and when you're dealing with abstracted geometry. I hope that was helpful. Thanks.